Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia mogul.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
Rick Van Warner, I mean, this is a very, very interesting story. He wrote a book, and you know something? Actually, I wouldn't buy this book. I wouldn't. I'd buy three. One for you, one for somebody that you know needs the help, and one for somebody that really just know is having some problem with addiction, opioids. We're going to get into the subject matter. Rick's got a pretty serious subject matter going on with his own son. Welcome, Rick. And
thank you.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
Now we did go way back. It just shows you never know when friends are going to come back and in and out of your life. We played a lot of basketball together, right?
Yes, we did.
Back in our 30s.
Yeah, that was a lot of pounds ago for me.
Yeah, it was a good run. He was a bully on the day. He was bouncing me around. But anyway, on pins and needles. I mean, I remember when I hooked up with you, I think it's now a couple years ago, when we reconnected, you told me about the serious problems you're having with your own son. First I want to ask you is, like, why did you write this book? But it's not like you're a book writer.
Right. I'm a journalist, an old journalist. Yeah. But I wrote the book because God told me to write the book, frankly. And I didn't really want to write the book. It's not the first thing in your mind to go ahead and expose your family and put yourself out there like that and talk about all the hell we went through with my son. But I just had this feeling inside that I was supposed to write this book, and I know where it came from. And so I wrote the book to help other families.
And who's this book for?
It's for anyone who is interested in the opioid epidemic. If you want to learn something about that, that's in there as well, how it all started, some of the factors and failures that led to it killing over 115 people a day, Americans, which is still going on every single day. We lost more people to the opioid overdose in 2017 than we lost Americans in the entire Vietnam War. Wow. Think about that for a minute. Yet nobody's in the streets on this topic because it's not as, obvious or sexy. There's a stigma around opioid addiction, which is essentially synthetic heroin in the form of OxyContin and similar pills, and heroin itself. Often these days cut with fentanyl and really dangerous substances that are killing even more kids and people of all ages.
This is a pretty serious subject. On May 2nd, Joe Plumari is putting together a huge dinner, and he's putting not only a dinner together, but a movement together to really try to get people more educated, give access to more information. Do you agree with Joe on this? Is there a lack of information? Is there a lack of a hub where you can kind of go to get help, or are you starting to feel a little bit of a turn with as far as how Americans feel about opioids?
I think that there's definitely been more media coverage on the issue. Yeah, I think that I completely agree with him that we need to do more to get this out there. More awareness, more education.
So again, if you're somebody who's struggling with addiction, particularly opioids, what am I going to get out of this book? Like, give me a couple of bullet points.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of people really, unless you're dealing specifically with someone, a loved one, a friend that has faced this problem, I feel like you're a little in the dark on this.
Absolutely.
And you really don't really have an idea how devastating this could be to just an average, regular, everyday person. Right.
Any family. My son is one of 4 children, all raised the same way, playing sports and clubs and doing all different things that you do in a middle-class suburban family. Unfortunately, my one son never could find his spot, couldn't find where he fit, didn't really have his group, felt a little outcast, wasn't very good at sports or music or anything. And that's where he started to feel isolated. And then the kids find other isolated kids and they start playing around with drugs. And at the time that he started playing around with opioids, which in the form of pills, OxyContin, he was about 16 years old in high school, and the pills were flowing through the high schools freely because they were all coming out of mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa's medicine cabinet where people leave half-used bottles or less than half-used bottles. Mm-hmm. So that led him to an addiction that almost claimed his life. He's been through more than 13 relapses at this point over a 10-year period. He has twice been resuscitated from death by overdose. He's been in jail. He's been homeless. He stole from us, put the family in chaos for a long period of time. Yet today he's alive and doing pretty well.
It's devastating.
It is.
Heartbreaking. Are you talking about all the trials and tribulations that you've went through with him?
Yes.
And his name is?
His name's Tommy.
Tommy. So the stuff you've gone through with Tommy from beginning to kind of even now, is that what the book is about?
Yes, it's a combination of it takes through the whole journey that our family's been through, and the power of the love and acceptance our family showed to him that really got him through where the business of recovery, which we invested, 6 figures, probably a couple $100,000 over a long period of time, trying residential recovery, outpatient, all different kinds of programs that didn't seem to have any impact on our son. And it wasn't until we changed our approach and just started rehabbing him at home and embracing him in the family love that he really started to come out of this a little bit and make progress forward.
Darren Strawberry talks about in his book, don't ever give up.
Exactly.
Is that the underlying tone here?
Yes. This is a book about hope. There's so many families going through this now. It could hit any household. Nobody's immune. It's rural, it's suburban, it's urban, it's every race, income level, and 50 states. This is a problem that, again, 115 Americans every single day are dying from opioid overdose. So this can hit any family, and this book is definitely about the permission to hope, the permission to not give up. And look, it's our kids. We got to get down in the trenches and fight for them.
Faith.
And people, and it's about faith and hope. It's about never giving up on your kid, because people who use opioids, they tend to have other underlying issues of self-esteem, low self-esteem. A lot of times it's hand in hand with social anxiety, depression, mental conditions. It's all a complex stew. It's not this simplistic view that some would like to put out there that it's just a choice.
Yeah, you're taking some pills. All of a sudden you got caught up, and now you're taking. You can't get off. It gets more complex.
Right.
Than
It
that.
really rewires the brain chemistry. Opioids completely, and the science is starting to show this. And we're finding a lot of our soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan are suffering from PTS are also getting into opioids, and it's rewiring their brain chemistry in a way that is affecting the suicide rates, and it's very difficult. This is essentially, opioids hijack a person's brain, and it takes away their ability to regulate the dopamine and all these things. They're not getting scientific on it,
Yeah.
but it is a disease of the brain, and even sustained short-term use can start to rewire brain chemistry in a way that takes a long time of sobriety to overcome.
It must be a hot time. I mean, this is the third book that I've now come across just in the last less than a year now. So this topic is now becoming, and I see it on the news often.
Mm-hmm.
Is the government doing enough?
No.
Are the American people just as a whole doing enough? And what else could and should they be doing?
Well, it's interesting because it's an equal opportunity destroyer. It's also a nonpartisan failure, because if you look at Obama was the first to put a light on it, right? About toward the end of his second term, he had a presidential commission on this issue. He did a lot of speaking, and there was some actual funding and things put against it. Yet months later, caved under the pressure of the big pharma lobby, he essentially signed into law a different act that neutered the DEA's ability to crack down on bad actor doctors, distributors, drug companies.
Which is all these drug companies
Right.
just oversubscribing, overselling.
Hundreds of millions of dollars they spend on lobbying every year, and 8 times the amount spent on the gun lobby than the gun lobby spends.
Wow. The
Big
60
pharma.
Minutes piece I thought outlined it pretty.
Exactly.
Right?
The 60
Maybe
Minutes
one of
piece
the-
exactly
maybe that was
spot on.
That was maybe I think that may have been the cross, where we got to a point where it finally got blown up a little bit. Some
Absolutely.
people got caught, because there were some people that went down after that, and some people
That's
got
right.
shit
Right,
canned.
and so you went from the Obama, and then coming out and putting a light on this, and then turning around and just signing, kind of neutering it, neutering efforts to address it, and then you get to Trump, and Trump does the same thing. He goes out, he gets a presidential commission led by Christie, and they have a lot of recommendations and very specific actions. Well, guess what? No funding, nothing much has been done. It was a step in the right direction to continue to keep a light on it, which at least he's done that. He was in New Hampshire doing that recently too. But for the most part, politicians at all levels of government have failed on this issue. They have not addressed it.
It's just not sexy enough for them to put their arms around it. But
That's right.
Is this just really a small part of actually the overall problem we have in this country with addiction? I mean, because
Sure,
addiction
it's
is
one
not
piece.
sexy. I mean, nobody's, really embracing, the alcoholics, the drug addicts, and even now we see a lot of sex addicts, and you can even make an argument for workaholics as well. But it just seems like, we have a major addiction problem in this country.
We do.
And it's not like, I think Joe Plumeri, who's also, I mentioned he's doing that event on May 2nd at the Pierre. I hope you're going to join me there. Marianne over there is getting honored, and we have a bunch of other athletes coming. But it's really more than a dinner. It's a movement that Joe is starting and announcing that night. It's a club he's putting together that he wants people to join. It's going to be amazing. His insight, foresight, and also he's just a guy who gets shit done. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I love about Joe is like he's not like sitting back and he's not waiting for the government. Although he's, I think, going to take politicians, I hope, because of his relationships with him. He's a leader. He's making stuff happen. He's not waiting for it to happen. Join me on May 2nd. Don't sit there. Join me. Buy a ticket. Sit at my table. Whatever it is, I'd love to see you. I want to give Joe a lot of support, but I want to give the opioids, this movement, I want it to be a sellout, this dinner for him, because it just showed that we understand that this is important. We want to find out more. And the hub that Joe's trying to create here will be very important, as far as a hub of people, a website, a place where anybody can go to get more information about this. So if you do stumble upon it, whether it be a neighbor, a friend, a kid in your class, you know where to go. That's my concern.
Right.
First of all, I think it's very courageous to write this book. Do you think that we're on our way to get to starting to kind of lock down some of these doctors, not putting so much of these drugs out there, the opioids out there, or are we kind of not much better?
We're not much better, but we're making baby steps, right? There's a legislation that just passed in Florida that reduces the number of pills somebody can get. Having electronic prescription monitoring so that it avoids people taking one prescription and going and filling it all over town or all kinds of doctors, right? Things of that nature are steps in the right direction. It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's been where's the outrage, right? We got 115 Americans dying every day, more than heart disease, car accidents, and gun violence combined. It's killing way more than
It's the leading,
and it's our kids. It's everybody. It's all ages. But it's the leading cause of accidental death in America. Yet where's the outrage? A lot of people, it was still in the shadows. So the mission is to get it out of the shadows into the light and get the stigma out and educate and aware, exactly like Joe was doing.
Is there a low point you want to share with us with your son?
Oh, there's many, but I can tell you that. There was a point where he didn't, when it first started, we had no signal, we had no signs. That's one of the things that's so frightening about it. It's not like marijuana or alcohol where there's an odor or bloodshot eyes or things of that nature. With opioids, they function very well until they don't. And in our son's case, he just didn't come home from school one day and
How old?
disappeared. He was 16, just past his 16th birthday. And that led to starting to search, tough neighborhoods, abandoned buildings. We got some intel that he was in this one area where there was a big abandoned building where there was a lot of known drug activity. Police wouldn't search the building, so I had to go in myself because they thought it was too dangerous. And looking through him in those buildings, and just worrying that you're going to come across him dead was an unbelievable difficult thing. And then the 4 days that followed, because it took us 4 days before we finally found him. And we did find him in that building on the brink of overdose, and we got him into a psychiatric detox kind of facility. And that was the beginning of many years of misery of the vicious cycle.
When you're out there searching for your loved one, it's so devastating because you not only see you're not only looking to see where your own kid is or brother, whatever it is, but then you're seeing so many other people and so much trauma, pain, and suffering, and you can't believe what you see. It's unbelievable. There's a whole world going on out there that we're completely unaware of unless we watch it in a movie or on a TV show where they have a 30-second clip of it underneath some bridge where there's some homeless people.
Well, that's the thing.
Drug addicts.
The idea is portrayed in popular culture. This is an inner city or a Skid Row kind of problem. But when my eyes were open to it, it changed everything. Everywhere I went in America, because I travel a lot too.
Yeah.
And whether I was in Orlando or anywhere else, I started to see the invisible kids and young adults and
There's no discrimination here on this.
No, not
it
at
doesn't
all.
discriminate. It takes everybody in. So anyway, are you listen, this is a very moving book. You know, we've been on here with Joe Palmari, also Darryl Strawberry, now Rick. On Pins and Needles is a quick read, but worth it. Pick this up on Amazon.com. It's an easy book to pick up. Anywhere else you want?
Barnes and Noble,
Yeah.
and anywhere books are.
And again, pick up a few of them. You know, this is something that you can't afford not to read, and also share in your neighborhood and community. The more we know, the more we can do. Just a few minutes left, Rick.
Sure.
What are you doing these days? Because you're a restaurant guy. You know, I'm a foodie.
Right.
Are you now in the restaurant game, or are you?
I
still,
am.
Because I know you were a consultant and overseeing a bunch of different.
Well,
things.
I just recently stepped off a board of directors of a Mexican restaurant chain that I'm involved with called Tijuana Flats, and I'm in the CEO seat there for at least the rest of this year. But
how many of those exist?
130.
130.
And
So you're
we're
running
in the-
130. Wow. So that's a lot of work.
Yeah, this is my side job, doing the book thing.
Yeah. Now
Trying to get, and again, the idea is to. A lot of people know somebody or have somebody that's
Yeah.
close to them that are going through this, and this is the idea of this book is to just give you some thinking that might be helpful to help your situation.
hard, when you go through all the different restaurants, is there a way to incorporate, the promoting this book through the restaurants?
Interestingly, I did find a connection, and that is that research came out that's not that surprising that shows that the restaurant workforce is the number one workforce in the United States for substance abuse.
Why?
I think just the long hours, the access, certainly the ones that have serve alcohol, I think there's easy access to that. The kitchens are very rife with drug use and long have been. Tough to find people to work those jobs, so a lot of owners look the other way. There's a number of reasons, just the crazy schedules, the shift parties. You were in the restaurant business, the old days, and so
in the morning.
So I've started doing some speaking around the restaurant industry, where I'm tying our story and the opioid epidemic into the restaurant, substance abuse problem, and that's kind of interesting to connect those dots. And opioid abuse is a big deal and a big problem in the kitchens, especially these days.
Tell me one thing that's really special about this chain of restaurants. Is there something why I want to run there?
Culture, heart. We just have a higher level of commitment and service than you normally find. People believe in it, and it's a lot through our community, the way we embrace and reach out to the community. We have a foundation, and each restaurant is locally connected to its community through.
Are they throughout the whole country, though?
No, they're in the southeast. We're mostly in Florida, and we have some in Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia.
I'm not finding one in New York, though.
No.
Why, though? How come?
Too much rent.
Why always? It is. It's difficult to run these things.
Too expensive. I mean, the cost of. I mean, you got to do a lot higher volumes. These are 2,500 square foot restaurants.
Simple.
It's much simpler, and you'd have to make a lot more sales than is out of that box to.
Are you finding a
Manhattan.
little bit of a break now with this real estate kind of bust? As far as retail going out the window, or brick and mortar, I should say, out the window. Is there more room for you, like for a chain like yours, to grow?
That's not going to really help us a lot,
No?
because the retailers have these big giant boxes.
Yeah.
And we go into end cap on a strip center. We don't even do freestanding.
Yeah.
So,
listen. If you can make it May 2nd, I'd love to see you there. On Pins and Needles is a book worth reading. Go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, pick it up, pick up a copy. Rick, closing remarks, anything you want to say?
No, I just think that I would say to anybody going through this, don't give up, and don't try to go it alone. There's strength in numbers, and there's many more families than you could possibly realize going through this. So seek out the support of Al-Anon, support groups, just your friends. Let people know what's going on, and you'll find out you're not alone. There's a ton of families that are struggling with this.